So the biggest January transfer window in history is over. Premier League clubs have spent more than £400 million, the biggest amount ever. The squads are now set for the rest of the season, so as the dust begins to settle, it's time to assess every Premier League club's January transfer business, using an old-fashioned grading system of an A to an F. And E's are still a thing, and not just the cool kids who take drugs. First up we've got Arsenal, and Christ what a month it was for the Gunners. It started horrifically with Alexis Sanchez leaving the club, but by the end of play on January 31st, you could say Arsene Wenger's side are in a better position. They got Henrik Mkhitaryan in exchange for a player who didn't want to be there, they signed one of the most exciting strikers in world football, and some young Greek kid who goes by the name of Mavropanos, I think. Getting rid of Theo Walcott was a good call as his career had stalled at the Emirates, but losing Olivier Giroud could be a big loss considering how much of an impact the Frenchman has been able to have, especially off the bench. However, with Mesut Ozil also set to sign a new contract, it's been a good month off the pitch for the Gunners, who hope it can help them on the pitch. We're giving Arsenal an A+. Next up it's Bournemouth, who've literally done nothing this month, other than send a few players out on loan. They called back Lewis Graven from Sunderland and sent him off to Aston Villa, while Benik Afobe has joined Wolves until the end of the season. However, Eddie Howe's side made no signings in a window where teams around them strengthened. Sure, they beat Chelsea 3-0, but transfer-wise it's an F for the Cherries. Another team in the relegation battle are Brighton, who brought in two first-team players, signing Jurgen Locadia from PSV, as well as bringing Leonardo Ajoa back to the club on loan. Goals will keep the Seagulls in the Premier League, so Chris Hughton will be praying his two new signings can change the club's fortunes going forward. Ajoa has proved he can chip in with some key goals, but Locadia is more of an unknown quantity, I'm definitely saying that wrong. They've addressed an area of weakness, so we're going to give Brighton a B-. Next up it's Burnley, who've added a bit of pace to their flanks with Aaron Lennon and George Kevin Nkudu. Sean Dyche has brought in a bit of cover with Robbie Brady out injured, and Lennon and Nkudu could be a great asset to the Clarets, but only if they're playing well, as neither of them strike you as the type of player who will thrive under a manager like Sean Dyche. These signings could go either way, so it's a C for Burnley. Over to Chelsea now, who've had an interesting month this transfer window, with Antonio Conte looking sadder as the days go by. They were linked with some incredible strikers such as Edin Dzeko, Andy Carroll, Peter Crouch, Ashley Barnes and the great Carly. They ended the month with Olivier Giroud though, a fantastic signing that allowed Michy Batshuayi to depart on loan. They got Ross Bartley in on the cheap, who has a career-defining year ahead of him at Stamford Bridge, and they also brought in Emerson Palmieri from Roma. A stressful month for Antonio Conte, and we're giving Chelsea a B+. Next up it's Crystal Palace, who brought in three players who I think the majority of people will know nothing about. Norwegian striker Alexander Sørloth has arrived after a decent scoring record in Denmark, but can he take that format at the Premier League? Hodgson also added Yaroslav Jak and Erdal Rakic, both young players, but are they really what you want in a relegation battle? Hodgson's had success with these kind of signings before, but it's an A+ for the Eagles. Everton were a busy club in January and had a pretty successful month, adding the striker they needed in Chen Tosun for £27 million, the wide player they wanted in Theo Walcott for £20 million, and some extra defensive cover with Eliakim Mangala on loan. The Toffees have become pretty boring under Sam Allardyce, but aren't going to get relegated, despite Big Sam's cries of being in a battle. Some decent signings this month from Everton, who get an A-. Up next is Huddersfield, who did their business early on in the window by signing Terence Kongolo on loan from Monaco and signing Alex Pritchard from Norwich for around £11 million. Kongolo seems to have received a lot of support from Huddersfield fans after his start on a Terriers shirt, but Alex Pritchard seems to be an expensive signing for a player who's only ever done it at championship level. Is he going to be the difference between staying up? You wouldn't like to think so, so we're giving David Wagner's transfer business a D+. Next we've got Leicester City, who were finally able to welcome Adrian Silva to their side after the 14th-setting debacle that was the summer transfer window. However, we can't give Leicester too much praise for Silva since he was actually signed in the summer. They added Diabate to their side, who scored twice on his debut, but that's about it in terms of incomings. Keeping Mahrez was big for the Foxes, but will it be counterproductive? The player is unhappy and the rest of the squad are unhappy with Mahrez himself. It's a D for Leicester. Over to Liverpool now, who struck early in the window, bringing in Virgil van Dijk as soon as they could for £75 million. The ecstasy soon turned to agony when Felipe Coutinho headed to Barcelona, so has it been a good window for the Reds? Well, sort of, as Van Dijk is a great signing, but the rest of the Coutinho money hasn't been spent on something like a goalkeeper, and they failed in their efforts to bring in Naby Keita early. If they fail to qualify for the Champions League, it's been an awful window, but until then it's a B for the Reds. Next it's the league leaders Manchester City, who had a frustrating month, failing in bids for Alexis Sanchez and Riyad Mahrez, who would have made their ridiculous forward line even more ridiculous. They did however bring in Aymeric Laporte for a club record fee of £57 million, and the Frenchman could become a real star under Pep Guardiola. We're giving Man City an A for the signing of Laporte. Over to the red side of Manchester, and Jose Mourinho has to be ecstatic that he was able to bring in Alexis Sanchez from under the noses of Man City, as well as getting Henrik Mkhitaryan off the books in the process. Sanchez brings in even more star quality to Old Trafford and carries the number 7 shirt with ease, but things haven't got off to a great start, having been kicked up a height by Yeovil and then losing to Tottenham. However, it's an A for Man United. Had it not been for deadline day, Newcastle would have got a big fat F for their transfer dealings, but they were eventually able to get in the striker they need, signing Islam Slimani on loan from Leicester. Benitez was also able to sign Kennedy on loan from Chelsea, who had a great debut against Burnley, as well as getting some big earners off the wage bill. Timing is the issue for the Magpies because they've dropped valuable points against Swansea and Burnley due to the lack of a goal scorer, so they have to hope Slimani isn't too little too late. Good signings, but the lateness of them means it's a C- for Newcastle. Up next it's Southampton, and they've got to be upset with their window. The Saints lost Virgil van Dijk and missed out on signing Dutch star Quincy Promes. Pellegrino was able to sign Guido Carrillo for a club record fee from Monaco, but will that be enough to save them from the drop? The Argentinian has hardly been a consistent source of goals during his career, but that might be down to a lack of minutes. However, it doesn't look good on paper, so it's a D- for Southampton. Next up it's Stoke City, whose big signing was the arrival of Badou Ndiaye from Galatasaray. They also added Moritz Bauer, who started well under Paul Lambert, and they brought in Greek fullback Kostas Staphylidis, who we saw have a year on loan at Fulham in the Championship. On the face of it, not the most exciting signings, but Ndiaye comes highly rated, while Bauer is doing well so far. But is it going to be enough? It's a C+ for Stoke. Down to Wales now with Swansea, who probably didn't get the amount of signings they wanted. Andre Ayew came home for a club record fee, having done brilliantly in his first spell with the club, and Andy King has arrived on loan from Leicester, where his minutes were limited. Two decent acquisitions who will give Swansea even more of a boost after a good start under Carlos Carvalhal. Will the nostalgia signing of Ayew work though? It didn't the last time. It's a C for Swansea, who still haven't rewrote the wrongs of the summer. Tottenham had a very quiet January transfer window, with the only piece of business being the arrival of Lucas Moura on deadline day. The Brazilian has finally landed in the Premier League, costing Spurs around £25 million from PSG. Moura has looked an exciting talent since his Sao Paulo days, and it's great to finally have him in the Premier League. However, Spurs fans may have hoped for a bit more cover up front in case Harry Kane gets injured, because Fernando Llorente hasn't had the best of seasons. It's a B for Tottenham. Over to Watford, who made 3 interesting signings in the final few days of the window. Gerard Deulofeu was always an exciting player and should add some quality on the flanks, albeit inconsistently, while Didier Ndong has shown flashes of talent in the Sunderland shirt, but won't excite Hornets fans too much. As for Dodi Lukebakio, all I know about him is he cost me about 30 million quid on Footy Manager a few years ago, and he was an absolute waste of money, so let's hope that's not the case for Watford's sake. They failed to add a goal scorer, so it's a tentative D+ for Watford. West Brom made one big signing, and they've got to be absolutely buzzing with it, bringing in Daniel Sturridge on loan from Liverpool. Alan Pardew has the striker he needs to pluck the baggies from the bottom of the table, as well as the defensive base that Tony Pulis left behind. However, will Sturridge be enough to keep them up? If he can find form, yes, but that's a big if with his fitness record. Based on one big signing though, it's a B+ for West Brom. And finally we've got West Ham, who've had another frustrating month with 1,000,001 bids rejected for various players. They were able to add João Mario on loan from Inter, who is an exciting player, and Jordan Hugill from Preston, who isn't quite as exciting, despite being a fan favourite at Deepdale. David Moyes will likely be upset that he wasn't able to bolster his squad more, but at least they didn't sign any African players. Christ above, have you ever heard anything more ridiculous in your life? It's a C for West Ham, one good signing, one not so good. So that's every Premier League club's January transfer business graded. Let us know your grades in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.